All right, we're going to be solving absolute value equations today. Recall that the definition of an absolute value of a quantity is the distance from the origin on the number line. So the solution to absolute value of x equals 7 are the numbers that are 7 units from the origin on the number line. So 7 units from 0. So which numbers are 7 units from the origin? We can have positive 7, but we can also have negative 7. So that's why an absolute value equation can have two solutions. All right, let's look at an example. We're going to solve the absolute value of x plus 3 equals 8. The first thing we have to do, looking at our summary at the bottom, is isolate the absolute value. So that means we want to get it by itself. So that means we got to get rid of that 3. So since it's plus 3, we're going to subtract 3 from both sides. And we're going to get the absolute value, 8 minus 3 is 5. So remember, we're looking for something that's 5 units from the origin. So that means that could be positive 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Or we could have negative 5. So our two answers are negative 5 and 5. All right. That's a really simple example. All right, look at the second one. Absolute value of x is equal to negative 3. Well, it's already isolated. So what is negative 3 units from the origin, from 0? Well, hopefully it's like, what? This makes no sense. That's right, because this would be no solution. We don't measure in negative units. So there's no solution. All right, there's two simple examples. Look at something a little bit more complicated, a little bit more advanced. All right, so this one we're going to isolate the absolute value. So that means the first thing I need to do is subtract 2 from both sides. So I'm going to get 3 absolute value of 5x minus 10 is equal to 47 minus 2 is 45. All right, now you cannot distribute that 3 into those absolute values, but we still need to get rid of that 3. So that means we're going to divide both sides by 3. So this is going to give us the absolute value of x minus 10 is equal to 15. All right, now I've got it isolated. Well, this is a little bit more complicated question because we got that 5x minus 10. So I'm going to have to do a little bit more work. So I'm going to go to step 2. I'm going to write two equations. Well, remember, an absolute value can be written as a piecewise. Well, we have one side that has a positive slope and the other side that has a negative slope. Because anytime we take the absolute value of a positive number, we get a positive number. And anytime we take an absolute value of a negative number, we get a positive number. So that means when I break this into two equations, I need to consider the positive half, the 5x minus 10 is equal to 15. But I also got to consider if this number inside of here is negative. So that's the opposite of this. The opposite of 5x minus 10 is equal to 15. I have to break this thing apart so I can be able to solve it. I can't solve it with the absolute value in there. So that's why I'm breaking this apart. I'm looking for two solutions, remember. Now it turns into algebra 1. All right, so I'm going to add 10 to both sides. So 15 plus 10 is 25. Divide both sides by 5, which 25 divided by 5 is 5. All right, let's work on this other side. I could distribute my negative, but a quicker way to do this is divide both sides by negative 1. So that's going to give me 5x minus 10 is equal to negative 15. I'm going to add 10 to both sides. So 5x is equal to negative 5. And now I'm going to divide both sides by 5. So x is equal to negative 1. So my two solutions, I'm going to check them here in a minute, look like to be negative 1 and 5. All right, but let's check our answers. So let's go back to the original equation and plug in both and see if they work. Alright, so I've got 3 absolute value. I'm going to try the negative 1. 5 times negative 1 is negative 5 minus 10 plus 2, and I want that to equal 47. Well, I got 3 times the absolute value of negative 15 plus 2. Absolute value of negative 15 is 15 plus 2. 3 times 15 is 45 plus 2 equals 47. Alright, so that one checks. Negative 1. That's part of my solution. Alright, let's check the other answer. Let's put in positive 5. Alright, 3 times the absolute value of 5 times 3 is 15 minus 10 plus 2 equals 47. 3 times the absolute value of 15 minus 10 is 5 plus 2. Absolute value of 5 is 5. 3 times 5 is 45 plus 2, which is equal to 47. So they both check. So both of my answers work. So now I'm going to put a solid dot at negative 1 and a solid dot at 5. Alright, so these are the steps I'm going to be following for the rest of these questions. So look at this one. Alright, absolute value is already isolated. So I'm going to make 2 equations. I'm up to step 2. The positive half, or I'm going to negate making this negative. Alright, since my 4x is by itself already, I'm going to subtract 2x. So I get 12 is equal to 2x. Divide both sides by 2. So 6 is equal to x, or using the symmetric property, x equals 6. Alright, let's solve the negative half. So I'm going to divide both sides by negative 1, save myself some work. So I'm going to end up with 2x plus 12 is equal to negative 4x. I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides. So I get 12 is equal to negative 6x. Divide by negative 6. So this time I get negative 2 is equal to x. Or using the symmetric property, x is equal to negative 2. Alright, remember I need to check. We're going to check, make sure we don't have any extraneous solutions. Solutions that look like they work, but when you go to put them back in, they don't work. Alright, so let's check the negative 2. Always go back to the original equation. So I've got the absolute value of negative 2 times 2 is negative 4 plus 12 is equal to the absolute value of 4 times negative 2, which is negative 8. I'm taking negative 2 and I'm plugging it in for my x's. Well, here I get the absolute value of 8 is equal to negative 8. 8 equal negative 8. Nope, that doesn't work. So that means this one's extraneous. Alright, check the other ones, and sometimes both of them are extraneous. Sometimes neither are extraneous. Alright, now I'm checking 6. Make sure you go back to the original equation. 2 times 6 is 12, plus 12 is equal to 4 times 6 is 24. I'm taking the 6 and plugging it in for both x's. Absolute value of 24 equals 24. Well, the absolute value of 24 is 24, so this one checks. So 6 is my only solution. Alright, let's look at one more. This is the one that's going to have the most arithmetic in it, most algebra in it. Alright, here again I'm already isolated, so I'm up to breaking them into 2 equations. So I'm going to leave it alone. 2x minus 4 equals 4x minus 1. Alright, then remember I need to make this negative, so the opposite of 2x minus 4 is equal to 4x minus 1. Alright, let's solve. I'm going to subtract 4x from both sides since I have x's on both sides. So I'm going to get negative 2x minus 4 equals negative 1. Now I'm going to add 4 to both sides. So I get negative 2x is equal to 3. Divide by negative 2. So x is equal to negative 3 halves. Alright, now I'm going to treat this one a little bit different. Because I have terms on both, I have two terms over here, I'm going to go ahead and distribute that negative. I could divide, but you need to divide both of them by that negative 1. You have a choice there. Alright, this time I'm going to subtract negative 4x. I get negative 6x plus 4 equals negative 1. I'm going to subtract 4. And I get 6x is equal to negative 5. Negative 6x equals negative 5. And now I'm going to divide by negative 6. So I get negative 5 over negative 6, which makes a positive 5, 6. Alright, let's check to see which ones work. I always go back to the original equation. Alright, got some fractions. Going to be let's see. So I got the absolute value. 2 times negative 3 halves is negative 3 minus 4 is equal to 4 times negative 3 halves is going to be negative 6 minus 1. Well, the absolute value of negative 7 equals negative 7. Well, 7 equal negative 7. That one doesn't check. That one's extraneous. I always go back to the original equation. Alright, let's check the next one. Alright, I'm going to be putting in 5, 6. I'm going to have some fractions here. Alright, let's see what I get. 2 times 5, 6 is 10, 6 minus 4 is equal to 4 times 5, 6 is 26 minus 1. Alright, what am I going to end up with here? I'm going to end up with, when I add these 10, 6 minus 4, I'm going to reduce that fraction. That's going to give me by 2, 5 thirds minus 4. Reduced by 2 again, 10 thirds minus 1. Alright, 5 thirds minus 4 is going to be a negative it's going to be a negative 7 thirds equals positive 7 thirds. Well, the absolute value of negative 7 thirds is 7 thirds equals 7 thirds. So this one works. So my only solution is 5, 6. Do not graph your extraneous solution because it doesn't work in your equation. Alright, let me know if you have any questions.